I like doing that. Howdy.
Howdy.
Welcome to the 6th meeting of the 42nd session of the Faculty Senate of Texas A&M University. If you are attending the meeting virtually and need a reminder of the Zoom features used in our Senate meetings, the Zoom tip sheet can be found on our website at the top of the current agenda page. At this time, please make sure your microphone is muted. For those on Zoom, Secretary Tarvin or Speaker-elect Klein will be monitoring the Zoom raise hands function. You'll be called upon first before others in the room. He will verbally identify you, at least in one case. He'll verbally identify you, then you can unmute your microphone and ask your question. In fairness to others, please limit yourself to one question at a time. And then Secretary Tarvin will also be monitoring the chat to convey messages as necessary. So please send any chat questions directly to him or Speaker-elect Klein. And we are using the registration function of Zoom to attract attendance. Most visitors today have been asked to view the meeting via our live stream, but our guests and administrators who may be asked to answer questions are joining in person or via Zoom, and that includes President Welsh, who is going to speak with us today. Visitors wishing to address the Senate may make this request by sending a chat message to Speaker-elect Klein or to Secretary Tarvin, or by using the raise hands function. And then finally, if a senator wishes to offer a motion during today's meeting, please raise your hand at the appropriate time, whether in person or online, and ask to be recognized. And so do we have Alexander Abubara? Did I say that semi-correctly? Yes. Yay. Please stand and hold your hand up. All right. I charge you to serve well and faithfully, to discharge your duties diligently, and to uphold the Constitution of the Faculty Senate and the academic integrity of Texas A&M University. Do you accept this obligation? Please say I do. Then I declare you officially installed as the Faculty Senate of Texas A&M University, and I welcome you to share in the governance of this institution. Please, have a seat. Thank you very much. So next, I will turn this over to President Welsh. I asked him to join us today because I've been hearing from a lot of our senators and faculty about just kind of concerns. And so I want to give him an opportunity to address the Senate directly on this, and then he will have time to take questions. He has a very hard stop at 3:45. He's on travel and he's rearranged his schedule to be able to join us. So again, one question per person when we get to that point. And so President Welsh, I welcome you to address the Faculty Senate, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, Angie. And it's an honor to be here, everybody. Thank you for letting me join you and taking some time at the beginning of your meeting. I apologize for not being there in person. I'm in Salt Lake City for anybody from this part of the world. It's a beautiful day, but it's cold here. And I'm showing my Texas roots, but I've got a little time between meetings here. So thanks for letting me squeeze in, Madam Speaker. I really do appreciate it. I'm not sure what the specific questions any of you may have for me are, and I'll answer anything you have here in a minute. Let me make a couple of general comments, though. I think in general, it's a pretty gross understatement to say this is a pretty turbulent time for education, generally, not just in the state of Texas, but across the country. A lot of uncertainty, a lot of question marks right now as you wait for the change of administrations and any effects that may fall from that. This is not the first time it's been a turbulent time for education in our country, and I'm confident it won't be the last. But I think it's worth taking a moment to pause and think through it just a little bit, because democracy is messy. And I know we have great political scientists and historians here in the crowd who could give us some tremendous quotes from history on that topic. But it is our system. I happen to believe in it. And so I think the real question for us is, how do we best navigate the turbulence? I think the recent minor and certificates episode highlighted a way that we should not try and navigate it, and that's by not communicating really, really well constantly. And so I do focus on communication because I believe it is our greatest shortfall as an organization. That's not surprising. Texas A&M is a large organization. It's multi-faceted. It has people working in many different areas with many different focal points. And as a result, communication can get disjointed very quickly. Communication in a large organization is hard to start with. And if everyone's not focused on the same task, which we certainly are not here and shouldn't be day to day across the university, it gets more and more complicated. Which is why we constantly need to work on it. And I think this is a collective issue. It's not any particular person's issue. The problem starts with me, and it goes all the way down to the everybody on every staff, faculty, or student organization on campus. And I think we all have to be committed to doing our part to make sure we make it better, or things won't improve in that regard. Without good communication, you can't build trust. It's impossible. And I think one of the things that happens in large organizations is sometimes at each level, we forget just how hard it is to communicate. Communication in a large organization is a journey. You need a map. And it needs to be a very thoughtfully prepared map. I'll give you a sample. I have a spreadsheet that my office uses to schedule our communications map. It changes every quarter or so. We adjust things on it, but it's a full page Excel spreadsheet with names of organizations and individuals that I need to meet with on some periodic basis, whether it's as a group or it's one-on-one. All those are accounted for in terms of length of meeting, how many a month or bi-monthly or quarterly, who needs to be discussed, we need to discuss issues with first so that we don't get things out of order with department heads going after deans who haven't heard of the issue yet, because the department heads heard it in a meeting that happened before the dean's meeting. There are a lot of pieces of this that require a little bit of conversation and thought, and then they need to be coordinated throughout the administrative chain. I believe everybody in the administrative chain, especially at the senior levels, needs to have this kind of a thought process and that kind of a communications map. It has to be me, each cabinet member, certainly the provost, the deans, the department heads, everybody needs to think through this, because we're not doing a very good job of moving information around. And it's crystal clear when I talk to faculty members across the campus who don't know anything about budget decisions for this fiscal year, or anything about facilities decisions, or anything about minors and certificates that could potentially affect them or their department, that no matter what we're trying, it's not working well enough. And so I've been pounding this theme with the cabinet members, with my functional leads, with the deans and the provost for the last month or so. And I think that is going to be the key to us getting better at doing all the above. The other thing I think we have to keep reminding ourselves, especially the administrative side of the university, is that the communication project is never done. You're never good enough at it. You have to keep working at it. And I'd like to ask your help in this, in that you know if it's working or not. To do that, you need to pay attention to the information that's flowing or not flowing. You need to make sure that your department heads, your dean, the provost, me, know that you're not getting the information you need. You need to be able to let us know that the format it's coming through in is not helpful. You need to let us know if you don't think you're aware enough in certain areas so we can figure out where the flow is stopping. Because I'll tell you, I am frustrated because I spend a lot of time trying to communicate. I mean, a lot of time. I don't do work during the day. I go to meetings and I talk to people. And the information is not moving to where it needs to go. And I do understand that frustration is the enemy of management and leadership in general, and it's certainly the enemy of communication. And so we've just got to set the frustration aside and figure out what the solution is. And so that's the journey I am on right now. Just as an idea for you, monthly, I meet with the cabinet a couple of times a week, an executive group of the cabinet a couple of times a month, a couple of more times a month with that executive group. Council of Deans is every 4 to 6 weeks. The executive committees of all the various faculty groups, from Faculty Senate to CPIs to UDPs to Senior Faculty Advisory Committee. I meet with student government leaders at least once a month. I meet with the student body president twice a month. I meet with coaches, members of the athletic department leadership team, community leaders, mayors of both Bryan and College Station, faith leaders, education leaders in the community. And some of these are regular, some are periodic, some are episodic, and many of them come together in different groups based on particular issues. That map changes, and it changes often, but we pay a lot of attention to it. And I need to make sure that administrators at every level are doing the same, because as I said, we'll just never be good enough at it. Now, I've been sending out the monthly email to everybody. We're going to start adding to the Texas A&M at Work product that Marcom put together. I don't know if you've seen this yet. It's been going a couple of months, but the intent is to let people around campus know about day-to-day activity that they could see, they could hear about, could affect them, or they might like to be part of. One of the things that I've noticed is that a lot of people don't know about decisions that have been made over the last year, things that we think we've shared through the cabinet, council of deans, et cetera, but it's not getting to people for whatever reason. Either they're choosing not to read it or not listen to it, or it's never being presented to them. Things like budget decisions that were made last year on where to allocate funding in FY25. And for example, a faculty member told me recently the faculty view is not being considered in any of this. That's absolutely not true. The Speaker of the Faculty Senate sits on the Strategic Budget Committee. Every decision we made there, virtually every single one, favored a faculty or an academic operations related position. And that's what we should be doing. But people don't have that data, and I don't know why not. So instead of working it through an administrative chain next year, we'll work it through the administrative chain. And I'm also going to send a one-time update on budget decisions so everybody sees the same information. We'll do the same thing on facilities decisions, for example. You know, the biology research facility we added into the plan this last year. A faculty member from biology was very upset with me one day here about a month ago because we weren't doing anything about their research space. I said, well, we're building a new building. And they didn't know that. So those kind of things are just bad communication. We've got to figure out how to do a better job of it. And then if there's inputs that we need to get from faculty, staff, or students, but especially related to academics and the budget long-term from the faculty, how do we make sure that communications work in the other way as well? How do we make sure that I'm getting information, the Strategic Budget Council, Executive Facilities Committee, et cetera, are hearing the input from everybody across our faculty? And so that's what the journey that I'm kind of on right now. I'm even starting a podcast, which for me is, you know, a complete IT immigrant, is a major step. We're going to start that in January. But that's the kind of things that I'm trying to do from my position, and I'm encouraging the people who work directly with me on the administrative side to do as well. I mean, let me pause on that a minute. I'll be glad to talk any more about that you'd like in question and answer period. There's also a lot of frustration clearly about the decisions in the minor and certificate issue. I am not somebody who is going to go back after the fact and complain about a decision that was made lawfully and within the authority of the group that made it. Just not me, guys. Maybe it's my 40 years of military training. I am somebody who will tell them up front exactly how I feel about it, and I did it in this case. We have 3 different levels of decision-making that affect the university because we are a state agency. We have the university, and we make our decisions based on input from anybody we can get to make input. That's what shared governance is all about to me. It's about making sure that everybody's voice is included to the best that we possibly can, so that when we make decisions, it represents at least the thought and the input of the entire university. And then we have to make a decision. Once the decision's made, it goes to the system in some cases. And in some cases, that has to go to the system. In other cases, the system says, you know, that's a lot of money. We want to review that and see how it fits into our overall system strategy. And then the chancellor's got decision authority at that level. And there are other situations where things have to go to the Board of Regents, or the Board of Regents can, within their authorities, ask to see those decisions. That's what happened with minors and certificates. And they chose to make a decision different than the university decision, which is within their authorities. Each of those 3 levels, whether we agree or like it or not, has different pressures on them. They have different inputs. They have different perspectives. And I think it's just a reality. And so from my perspective, the best way to operate in that kind of turbulence is to make sure that we have gotten our act together well enough at the front end to paint a very clear, concise picture with logical support for the recommendations or decisions we make or recommendations we make for those things that have to be decided at a higher level, and then turn it over to them for their consideration. I don't know any other way of approaching it. If you have one, I'd love to hear it. But my goal now is to figure out how we can be as concise, as conscientious, and as comprehensive as we can in the things that we decide and the things we recommend. Because let me tell you one other observation from this last semester. It was a great semester. You do phenomenal work. You always have, and you continue to do so. Our students are happy. They have frustrations every day, just like you do, but they're happy with the education they're getting, the experience you're providing them, and the platform you're helping them build professionally. There are an awful lot of really good things going on at this university, and the root of most of them is looking at me on a Zoom screen right now. I am a huge fan of our faculty. I say it all the time. You just need to know I mean it. You do remarkable things each and every day. And there is no lack of appreciation for that in any of those levels I just mentioned to you. There are just different concerns that we may or may not share with them. And so I'm looking for a way ahead that keeps the focus where it needs to be, which is on the work that you do on behalf of these young men and women who come here to learn and to prepare to go chase their dreams. And you are exceptionally good at it. My job is to help you get better or better enable you to do that job in any way I can. So let me stop there and see what you want to talk about.
President Welsh, Speaker Price, and fellow senators, I'm both sad and angry that I have to come before you today to discuss unacceptable student behavior at our university. A faculty colleague has confirmed to me that a student was chased by other students who were shouting anti-LGBTQ slurs at him. And that is only one of multiple similar incidents I have confirmed. That is prompting me to address multiple issues. First, the failure of our administration to stand up for the LGBTQ community and its willingness to accede to the right-wing demands, and that includes the recent actions by the Board of Regents. It has emboldened a faction of our student body to act out in harmful ways that I'm concerned could eventually escalate into violent confrontations. Roughly 15 years ago, we had a similar situation in which students and staff reported violent assaultive encounters on campus. In a meeting with LGBTQ students, staff, faculty, and allies, the then Vice President of Student Affairs, General Joe Weber, asked what he could do to demonstrate the university's commitment to those gathered. More than anything, respondents said was the need for the university to state publicly that it supported its LGBTQ community by posting a statement online. He did that the next morning. Where is that type of action now? I haven't seen our administration step forward to reassure us of their commitment to LGBTQ students and their education, or to LGBTQ faculty and their teaching and research on controversial topics. I could surmise what the motivations are, but I won't ascribe any at this point. Instead, I'm asking for three things. One, I'm requesting the leaders of this university to step up, as General Weber did, and publicly and clearly state your support for the university's LGBTQ students, staff, and faculty, and your commitment to protecting them from physical or emotional violence. 2, I'm requesting Student Affairs to reinforce and perhaps strengthen student rules that deal with harassment and hate. 3, I'm asking the faculty to remain vigilant in the face of attacks on vulnerable members of our community. I have long viewed the faculty as the conscience of this university, and the Senate in particular as the voice of that conscience. Please stand with those of us who are pushing back against hate at A&M and the detrimental effects it will have on our campus. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
President Welsh, do you have comments you wish to make?
Yeah, one of our faculty members sent me an email about the incidents that were just described. When I asked, because I hadn't heard about these, where could I get the details? I was told it was on the stop. They were reported on the Stop Hate line. We checked the Stop Hate line, and those incidents were not reported there, according to the information I got yesterday. So our University Police Department was going to reach out directly to the faculty member who sent me that information and see if we could get the facts on these incidents that were just described. I don't know how many there were. I don't know the facts of them. But we obviously need to look into this and find out exactly what happened, who was involved, and deal with that separately than the greater issue here. I find it interesting that you say I've never said anything about this. I mean, go back to the beginning of my time as the interim and read what I said, listen to what I said in interviews. Everybody on this campus deserves to be treated like family, faculty, staff, or students. Every single person. I've probably said this 50 times publicly. All of them should be treated with respect. All of them should be included. All of them should have a voice and should feel comfortable using it. All of them should feel like incredibly valuable and critically important pieces of what we're trying to accomplish here. And anybody who doesn't feel that way is not being treated appropriately. We should all feel that way all the time. I don't know how to be much clearer than that. Things that have there are comments made routinely about different issues that come up around the university, and what bothers me is that it's as if somebody has to be guilty of something every time. That's just not always the case. Most people at this campus try to do the right thing. If we find something that's not right, like somebody chasing somebody around, yelling names at them, let's figure out who it is and let's crush it. I'm with you 1,000% on that. But let's get the facts straight first and go from there.
Thank you. Senator Kolsinski.
Oh, yes. Thank you, Dr. Price. President Welch, a couple weeks ago, Governor Abbott issued an order which seems to prohibit travel to China for research purposes, although it's a little bit ambiguous. It seems everyone seems to think that the prohibition would apply to trips paid for by entities affiliated with the Chinese government. It seems to be unclear, though, whether or not we could travel to China to do our research if we fund it ourselves or we fund it through domestically. Do you have an opinion on that, or do we know the details on what kind of travel to China is prohibited and what kind isn't? Because I have several of my constituents who do research on the Chinese economy and the Chinese financial system, and it's the second biggest economy in the world, and not being able to travel to China would severely hinder their ability to do that research. And I think it's kind of important that we, get a good understanding of what's going on in China economically. I would like to hear your words on this.
Yeah, Adam, I agree with you that we don't have a good understanding on the intent of the directive and the details that go with that. The General Counsel has given us an initial reading that they would like us to put together the same kind of questions if you remember back when SB 17 first came out, and just ask the faculty, which the provost has already been tasked to do, to put together the questions that we need to get answered relative to this policy. Right now, there is no execution guidance with it. It goes into effect, I may get the month wrong. It's either 1 August or 1 September of next year.
1 August.
1 August, thanks, Andy.
Okay.
And so we have to get it clearly understood well before that. And so I think we need to get very early in the new year a list of questions to the general counsel, so the general counsel can start working the answers with the governor's staff and the legislative teams that are going to be generating the details on this. So we know what the issues are that we should address first, with either the governor or with the legislature or through the Board of Regents, to try and figure out what is the impact, how big of an impact is it, where does it have the most damaging effect? Because there are going to be people who do research with China whose work's going to be affected here. I don't see any question about that. It also could potentially affect family members who travel to China. Do you have to report that if someone in your family is making that trip? And so there's a lot of question marks right now, not many answers, but I think we have a game plan in place to get the answers we need. You should see something pretty quickly, and if you don't, yell at me.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. Senator Ariave.
Yes, I mean, I want to follow up with what Adam said, just as a comment. I think that it is very important that once we have proper guidance on how to follow the law or the executive order by the governor, we try to do our best to comply with that order, but we don't go overboard. Texas A&M tends in many occasions tends to go overboard in these policies. But my question, though, and this is the question that I'm going to ask from President Welch, is the following. So you mentioned a faculty that was complaining about their lab not being ready to do research, right? And you use that as an example of one person that was not properly informed as to a building that was being built to do research in their field. Now, my question is the following. There have been a lot of announcements for hundreds of millions of dollars of investment for infrastructure at Texas A&M in Raleigh campus. And yet, faculty and department heads and probably deans complain about basic facilities that do not work in the main campus, right? These are not anecdotal. There are elevators that do not work in major buildings of departments in engineering, for example, that I know of, right? So I see this dissonance, right? On the one hand, the system, right, announces hundreds of millions of dollars of investment on Raleigh, which is important. It's an expansion, area for us. But we have, a large amount of facilities issues that haven't been resolved yet, right? And faculty complain to the department heads complain to the deans. I do not know if that communication from the bottom up is going all the way to your desk, right? But clearly, the facilities that we have in many cases are not those of a first-rate university, right? And I feel that sometimes, going after things that look really attractive on a newspaper in terms of facilities and investment, as opposed to taking care of the basic necessities of our staff, faculty, and students, is not in accordance to the type of university that we aspire to be.
Yeah, I agree with you. One of the things the Executive Facilities Committee has focused a lot on this past year is trying to build a baseline understanding of every one of the 270 plus facilities we have on campus, to include the research labs. And we have contracted a company to start that in January. It will take them about a year to do it. The intent is to understand what doing deferred maintenance versus new construction has on our backlog. We have got to add more research facilities to the capital projects list. We've already made the decision to do so and have started down that route. Raimundo, I'd invite you to come to an Executive Facilities Committee meeting with me someday and let us talk to you about how we're actually looking at that problem, so you can see. And you can come with a speaker. She's at those meetings as well. And so I think you're right. We have got to figure out how to do a better job of refreshing the campus. I can't speak to the systems use of funding to build new facilities at Rellis. The good news is Rellis does benefit our researchers as well. And it is a system initiative. We are not part of the decisions that affect the Rellis campus routinely, although we try hard to get into the discussion. I would love to take some more of that system money and use it to do deferred maintenance or refresh of labs on campus. And we'll continue to try and do that. We actually did get money from the system this year for projects that we want to do here on main campus over the next 5 years. And I'll send a note out to everybody that summarizes what those are so you can see what they are, rather than go into all the details here. That's the kind of information that has been shared through the administrative chain, but it's not getting to you.
Just to clarify, I'm not on the Executive Facilities Committee, and I was actually going to ask if we have faculty representation on that. I have asked our Planning Committee to meet with Peter Lang, who is our Chief Operating Officer and is in charge of the facilities area, though. So, and I'll ask them to make a report at the next meeting on that topic.
Yeah, thanks, Andy. Good correction. I'm sorry, you're on the Strategic Budget Council, which is the first step for anybody going to the Executive Facilities Committee. And they make the decisions on where to actually do the investment that comes out of those Executive Facility Committee meetings. We have a dean representative on there, Angie. We have, and so we can certainly add a faculty senate representative on that committee. There's no issue with that at all.
Thank you.
But anyway, so that's where I'd leave that one for now.
Thank you.
But I agree with you.
Sachs. Oh,
We got to do a better job of this.
thank you. Senator Sachs.
Yes, thank you. And thank you, President Welsh. I'm in the biology department, and I was staggered to imagine, the scenario where you said that there's a biology faculty member who didn't know there wasn't a new building that's approved and should be inhabitable in 5 years, because every faculty meeting, essentially for the last year, this has been discussed, and the incredible progress under your administration to make this happen has been applauded. So what you said about chains of communication, and they're there and things are said, but people don't listen. I don't have an explanation, but I just wanted to go on the record to say that biology knows this is happening, and we're thrilled to be having this new building. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. But it kind of highlights the issue. Communication lives where you live, and you see it from your own perspective. And if we can get everyone to participate in it in one way or another, we get better.
Thank you. Senator Miranda.
Thank you, President Welsh, for coming to talk with us, even though you have all of these other meetings that are conflicting. I just wanted to go back to that issue of the governor's order that came out a couple of weeks ago. And there's the issues of concern relate not only to academic freedom that Senator Kolodzinski pointed out, but also personal freedoms, which include having to report about travel plans, personal travel plans, and things like that. And my concerns are that these things butt up against First Amendment rights, right against self-incrimination, things like that. And you're a former military officer, and the expectation as a military officer is that you follow lawful orders, constitutionally lawful orders, but reject orders that are unconstitutional or unlawful. Do you see a route for a university to push back against orders that might come? So a governor might say something, but that doesn't necessarily mean it is lawful. And do you see a route for a university to push back against that?
Yeah, I think that's a fair question. I don't, I don't know if it's an unlawful order or not. I would assume before the governor, actually put the order out that he would delve pretty deeply into that. And it would be our general counsel's recommendation to the chancellor, if he thought it was unlawful, for the chancellor to push back for the entire system. The university can certainly take a position and say that we think that it would be unlawful, but the advisors for us on the legal position are the chancellor's or general counsel team. So typically, I think in a case like this, it would be the chancellor choosing to do that for the entire system. We haven't gotten far enough into this to explore the legal side of it, and whether we think there are issues legally with individual rights, et cetera. And so I suspect we're a little bit behind the governor's legal team on this one. But that'll be, I'm sure, part of the overall review that's done by the Office of the General Counsel as we get into all the questions that we're going to send to them. Because we're going to have people asking this question. It's a fair question.
Thank you. Senator Marini.
Hi, President. Thank you. I'm Francisca Marini. I really appreciate you taking time to speak with us today, and I really appreciate everything you're doing for the university. You're really building a lot of trust, and you are working on communication. So thank you so much. I wanted to follow up on what Senator Rice said. I am aware of that incident. Unfortunately, I also heard of something else where a student was called the N-word. Informally, people I heard saying like, "Oh, this is happening in our department also, or college." So there is stuff going on campus. As you're saying, it probably also goes back to communication. I personally think I have a good idea what form to fill out for what and how to report things, but not everybody does. So maybe having refreshers periodically, mandatory training, you don't want to overdo it, but like really remind people of what needs to be reported, how you're reporting it, and make sure that, as you say, the communication gets to you when it's needed and also goes to the right people. Because luckily I only had to use that form a couple of times to tell somebody, but I know it goes to several different people. There are also cases where you need to report to Title IX because we're mandatory reporters. So yeah, maybe some refreshers on communication using what you already have set up, which I think is a pretty good system. But so thank you so much.
Thank you, ma'am. That's a great idea.
Any other questions for President Welsh? Well, thank you. Anything else? Last words, President
Yes.
Welsh?
I'm sorry, we do have a question in the chat.
Oh, thank you. Go ahead, please.
Senator Yoder asked President Welsh, what stance and protections will you provide and or stand up for regarding our Aggie students who are identified as DACA or undocumented?
You know, I don't know what position the university or the system took in the past. I just don't know. I'll tell you this, I've been working for the last 3 years as part of a group trying to help families of both current and former Afghan students get to the US. If that tells you where my heart is on it. I don't know what the policy changes may be related to DACA, and I hate to speculate what we would need to say or to push back on until we know what those things are. I believe our country should stand for something. And when we say something, we should stand behind it.
Thank you. Senator Haney.
Just one last thing. Thank you, President Welsh, for what you've done in your efforts to rebuild trust and everything. What about reaffirming our commitment to the core values, having a public statement saying that this is not just a tagline or a recruitment tool, but these Aggie core values actually mean something, and that should be the benchmark that we hold ourselves to. What about some kind of public statement or communication that these are serious, that we take respect, integrity, and all of this stuff seriously? Thank you.
Yeah, Adam, about, I don't know, a week before last maybe, or maybe it's the beginning of last week, I put out a statement about ticket pull. Very shortly, either before or after that, I did a number of interviews with the media, and in all of those, I said the same thing, that our core values are all day, every day. And if we don't treat them that way, they mean nothing. I think I've been pretty clear on this. And I talk about core values a lot and why I believe they matter, because I think they're the primary reason A&M matters. You know, it's a great institution. It's a great educational institution. It's got phenomenal students. It's got all these great components, but something brings it together in a way that gives it almost a mission type feel. And I know you all believe in this because of the way you dedicate yourself to the job. So do our staff, so do our students. And of course, the former students are bonded by it. So I don't think it's just me saying it. I think it's us saying it. We all have to say it. And we have to say it repeatedly. I don't think anything has more impact on a student than a faculty member at the front of the classroom talking about core values. It's like a coach talking about core values. Mike Elko, for example, talks about core values to his football players all the time. He puts them in context of a football practice or a football game, or you're part of a team, and why the core values matter in being a supportive part of that team. And I think all of us have that role to play. I promise I'll keep talking about them.
Thank you. Any other questions, being mindful of your time, sir? Any last statements in your last 4 minutes?
No, ma'am. Help me with this communication thing. We got to get it right, because we just can't get to that next level if we don't. And there are some really difficult conversations ahead of us. Because of where we are with the budget and the capacity problems we have at the university, it's going to take us a good 7 to 10 years to kind of get out of the classroom space, dormitory, parking, that hole, the infrastructure hole on the university, to be able to manage 80,000 students in a way that feels comfortable. That includes faculty to student ratios, staff to faculty ratios, staff to student services ratios, all those things that make the university a better place to live, work, and learn. We have got to get right before we grow in the future. Now, capping undergraduate growth sounds easy. It's really going to be complicated. And it raises a number of very difficult issues for the faculty in particular. And these are issues I don't think you can solve at the university level, not efficiently. And I don't think you have the expertise at the university level to solve a college or department's capacity issues. So for example, if we want to add a new degree and pick a department, and we think we can bring 500 or 1,000 more students into that degree over time, the first question I'm going to ask the dean is, where are you taking them from? Which majors or minors or certificate programs are you downsizing in order to build the new one? We can grow graduate programs or online programs, but if we're talking about new programs, and a lot of people want to grow inside the university because they're having great success and there's a demand signal, it means we're going to have to give up things that we have been doing that may not have the same demand and potential for success going forward. Those are going to be hard conversations. You know it. They're really going to be hard conversations, but you have to be in the middle of them. Nobody else can have them, not and make the right decisions. And all that requires communication.
Thank you, sir. Any last thoughts? We appreciate you joining us,
Thank you for the
President.
opportunity to be here, and thanks to all of you for everything you do.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. So, my speaker comments. Every month I make a list of things that I want to remember to say to the faculty and then promptly forget them, but I do have things to say. So it was pointed out to me that there was an opinion that the Faculty Senate doesn't communicate, doesn't represent the faculty, or the faculty don't believe we represent them. I will be working with our communication senators and faculty to help improve the communication from the Faculty Senate to our faculty. And I ask all of you to help with that because you are part of the communication means. I met with the caucus leaders to talk to them about this very topic and to talk about different issues are coming up, and ask them to meet with their caucus and spread that information, asking the caucuses to meet with their deans, hopefully on a monthly basis, and provide communication that way. And then also ask whenever there is a department meeting, understand that we don't have senators in every department, but ask those caucus leaders or the representatives to engage with all of the departments in their college and be asked to be able to attend those department meetings at least once in a semester to provide opportunities for engagement for faculty to speak back to the Senate and provide their concerns about things. I will be sending out a brief meeting summary to all of our faculty across the university after this meeting and after every meeting in the future, just to give them a highlights, send them to our website, continually directing them to talk to their senators and showing them who the senators are. And that also before the meetings, we'll start sending out a communication to highlight things that are on the agenda, reminding them how the consent agenda works. If they have a concern about something on the consent agenda, how to communicate that to their senator, things of that nature to, again, try to get our faculty to have that information to hand. I know that my email gets lost just like everybody else's does, but it's a start. And so again, if you have other ways or thoughts and things, I do serve on the Strategic Budget Council as a representative for the faculty, and I do provide input. When I can't be there, I go back and look at the information and share that feedback to them. But I'm not the decision maker in that, and so I would be uncomfortable stating that certain decisions were made, but they do send communications out about the decisions that are made. And once those official communications out, I'm happy to share those with the faculty. And the same thing with the executive, the president's cabinet. I sit on that greater group and I am the faculty voice there, and I am quite verbal. Those of you who know me well know that I'm not particularly shy in that respect. So I do provide feedback and comments and things and making sure that a faculty viewpoint, and they're very receptive. I will say that, very receptive to things. Say, have you thought about this from the faculty perspective? But again, the messaging of the decisions that are made there, we try to share the information as we're directed to do so, but I want to make sure that I'm doing it in the appropriate way and not sharing something that hasn't been decided upon, for example. So I do ask for your help in improving that communication with each of the senator, with each of your caucuses, with your colleagues. Make sure, ask them, is there anything that you can bring up for them in committee of the whole, things that we can charge our committees with? I've asked our, again, planning committee to meet with Peter Lang. They're looking at things like the George Bush intersection construction that's going to be happening and how we're going to manage campus when it's divided into two, almost, for a good many years, as well as the other construction that's going to be going around in College Station. This is the time when we need jetpacks and drones to travel us from place to place, I think. And then Budget Committee meets with our Vice President for Finance and has conversations with them. So they also have an opportunity to provide feedback and communication. I know our Academic Affairs group works with folks in the Provost's office routinely. So we are building those communications, personnel welfare, meeting with our interim vice president for human resources and operational effectiveness, I think is what the OE stands for. But trying to make sure that we get all of our committees connected and talking to the appropriate people and providing feedback to them to help support them in their decision making. So if there's other opportunities that we see, or if we think we need to make better connections in certain areas, please let me know, because I'm happy to reach out, just like pointed out on the Executive Facilities Committee, and then see if there's other places where we need to have faculty senate representation. So with that, I'll move to our meeting. So if you would please take a moment and look through the agenda. I know you've probably had a chance to look at it. I will say that we had on there informational item, which is the code of conduct that's later on in the agenda. It's just for informational purposes. It is for discussion. The preamble, and that was added today. That was my fault because I want to make sure I had the correct copy. But it is what multiple committees have worked on over time. This is for informational purposes and then to discuss with your faculty members, so an opportunity to engage with your faculty. So first of all, I'll go ahead and move on to the approval of the minutes. Are there any corrections to the November 11th, 2024 meeting minutes found in attachment A? Okay. Hearing none, then I declare the minutes approved as distributed. I get to do that. Moving on to the consent agenda. Are there any questions or concerns on the December 9th consent agenda items? Okay, so if you have, so just a reminder for everybody, if you have something on the consent agenda, it immediately you say, I'd like to have item whatever removed from the consent agenda. It is removed automatically. That's not up for vote. And then it comes in on the unfinished business immediately after the consent agenda. So Senator Sinha.
Yes, I request you to remove COSC 651, data science for the built environment.
Is this item B13?
B30, yes.
B13 on the agenda. Okay, thank you. That's been removed. Senator Townsend.
I request to remove B286, the minor in honors.
Okay, thank you. I'm flipping through here to make sure I grab that. Okay, B286. Okay, anything else? Anybody else have any concerns over any other items on the consent agenda? All right. Then hearing no other items, then I will declare the consent agenda approved as presented. All right, so next, the items that are requested removed from the consent agenda, and now they're going to come up under unfinished business. So Senator Sinha, do you have something you would like to say about item B13?
Yes, thank you, Speaker, for giving this opportunity. Yes, for that course, our department found there are a lot of overlap with the content material of statistics. So we'd request that department to consult with our department to resolve that issue.
With the Department of Statistics?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, so that means you need to, so you would make a motion then to have it returned to the department to have that consultation happen is what you might choose to do here.
Yes, that is my motion.
Okay, is there a second for that motion?
May I second?
You can't second, sorry, but I have a second here in the room. Okay, any other discussion? Is there anyone here from construction science that wants to speak to that? If you can come to the microphone and do the whole senator and from college and stuff. And same for you, if you want to come up and speak.
Shelley Holiday, I'm senator from the College of Architecture. I was just trying to text my graduate dean to see if there had been anything brought up. I'm not sure about the overlap. It's something that we'll look at and work with them to move. My concern is where we are within the timeline, to get things moved forward. That's my biggest concern,
So they, because of the circumstances, they could opt to offer it as a waiver for a 689 another time.
Okay, okay. That was my only concern is the timeline that we're at.
Sure.
Okay.
Sure. The reason about the timeline issue is that, well, actually, the January meeting is the last time to make the agenda, to make the catalog, so you still have till January.
I see Senator Fickle on here from Department of Construction Science. I don't know, Senator Fickle, if you...
Senator Fickle, do you want to speak to this?
I can't speak specifically to it, so no, I'm not aware of the conflict, but we'll certainly get it resolved.
Yes.
Yeah, and again, if it's
Yeah.
resolved by January, it could be brought back on that agenda.
Yeah, I think it can be resolved very quickly. If you please contact with our head of the department, then it will be resolved.
Go ahead.
Yes, absolutely. Dr. Hartel, Senator for the College of Architecture. I am in construction science. This is a course that will be mandatory for our PhD programs or doctoral students. So this is a data science class, which would fulfill kind of the research process. So yes, absolutely. I will let our department know and the faculty in charge who built the class to consult with your department. A large component of this is also taking a data set and completing a more of the research process in terms of using this data sets which will lead to a publication or something like that. So Yes, there are some very basic statistics and modeling that are taught in the course, but that is with the knowledge that the students have already had a sound foundation in terms of statistics. So we still encourage our students to take statistics for researchers prior to taking this course.
Great.
Thank you. Thank you. So that was one of the issues because it was not listed as one of the prerequisite. So that is why our department would like to see that it is written as a prerequisite, one of the statistics courses.
That would
So
be
that's
a
something you all
sound-
could discuss. for sure.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
and with good reason.
Sure. Okay.
Thank you.
Any other discussion? All in favor of returning this course to the department for that consultation, please say aye or raise your hands online. Aye. Lots of hands clicking online. This is awesome. Woohoo. Any opposed? Okay, we will return that. Thank you very much. So the next item is B 286 agenda item, which is the honors minor. Senator Townsend.
Thank you. I had just a couple of comments or questions about this minor. Number one, curious or conversation if a minor is the best way to handle a university honors student and his academic progress, how this might align with programs that they're already involved in within their colleges. I also see within this minor a lot of overlap with other leadership type programs offered on campus or currently being discussed, and curious how those intersect or overlap, and if that is intentional or would honors actually want to take a slightly different path. Thank you.
I have a couple of people in the audience who might be able to address that if you'd like to come forward. And just state your name and title when you get to the microphone, please.
Howdy, I'm John Kotinik, Director for the University Honors Program. Thanks for the question, Senator Townsend. I guess questions. I'll start with the first one about why a minor as opposed to what we have. There is a concern that that not having this as part of an academic credential like a minor or a major puts students at a disadvantage for trying to pursue it, that it creates problems for their satisfactory academic progress or their eligibility for financial aid. And so that's been the primary driver for moving this from a transcript designation to a minor. As far as your concern about overlap with leadership programs that exist, I'm afraid I'm not sure what you're referring to. What the minor is calling for is 18 hours, 13 of which would be honors courses in the student's existing curriculum. So courses that they're already taking for to meet their major requirements. 5 of those hours would come from new seminar courses that are also in the consent agenda. These are brand new courses and are not associated with any other programs right now, as far as I'm aware. So to that first part, the minor would function largely the way that the transcript designation does now. We encourage students to take honors versions of courses that they already need for their degree plan in order to meet the breadth and depth distribution requirements for honors fellows. And then typically the only thing that's outside of their existing major requirements would be the capstone.
Could I ask, maybe you could provide some overall context for why the change is being made there for honors and some of the larger changes that are envisioned for the honors program?
Sure. I will do my best, and if I fall short, then I'll invite Dr. Johnson to fill in those gaps. So My understanding is that there is there are a couple of concerns that we're looking to address. One of which is access. So as our program exists right now, we've required first-year students to live in the honors housing community and take part in that experience. That's based on feedback that we got from former students and a retrospective survey that we did. The issue is that our first-year program is limited to about 400 students because that's how many beds that we have and how much infrastructure that we have. There is a desire to increase our capacity eventually to be about 10% of the incoming freshman class. And so that would be a stepwise increase. The other part is to improve the experience within the classroom. So as of right now, about 75% of the courses that students are taking for honors credit are stacked sections. And some of those are great. I've heard from both faculty and students alike that some of those experiences are not what we'd like them to have. And so there's a desire to create these new seminar courses that would be limited in size and really focus on that interaction between faculty and students. The other part of this is to lean into Texas A&M University's ethos and focus on the Aggie core values. And so to that conversation earlier, this program would help in that way. Have I done an appropriate job there? Is there more you'd add?
Go ahead, Dr. Johnson.
Good afternoon, Michael Johnson, Interim Vice Provost for Faculty Affairs, Associate Provost for Academic Enhancement, and faculty member in Engineering Technology and Industrial Distribution. And the one thing that I just wanted to add was that the feedback we receive from our students is a lack of community throughout their 4 years here at Texas A&M in the honors program. So they get this great experience in their freshman year in the living learning community, but then they don't have the opportunity to engage with their peers in honors throughout their 4 years. And so the seminar courses give them a chance to connect with their honors peers in a seminar course every year throughout their 4 years. And that's really something that our students have told us would be beneficial to them.
Is there a particular way that this would take into account honors programs that are in colleges where the students are doing seminars for that? Do they get that credit? I'm trying to look through this to see how that reads.
Right. So honors credit that they're getting in their departments would count towards that 13 hours that are in outside of the 5 seminar hours. So for instance, if a computer science student had an honors seminar that they were taking, then they could use that towards the 13 hours and then take 4 other 3-credit classes to meet their 18 hours of honors.
Okay. Anybody else have any questions? Senator Townsend?
I have, I guess, 1 or 2 follow-up questions. Number 1, I'm looking at the program and all of the required courses are the new courses that you have also in consent agenda. And they all link to some aspect of the core values or RELAs. Each one is a different letter of RELAs, which is quite clever. And not opposed to core values at all. We've had that discussion already today. But I am curious, number 1, who is going to teach these courses? And number 2, that piece of it is what I saw overlapping with some of the other efforts at leadership or existing leadership programs on campus.
Okay. To answer your first question, we have requested budget to offer fellows that would be teaching these core value courses a small stipend, and they would teach them as an overload. So faculty throughout the campus could apply to be honors core value fellows. We're still working on a name that's catchier, but that's what we've got right now. And then to your second question, I think that I don't really see the overlap. We have honors students that are potentially in other leadership programs, but that's a choice that they're making. This is a specific group that we're targeting for this particular experience. And so I don't see it infringing upon other populations so much as adding to what other students might want to engage in here at their time at Texas A&M.
Thank you. That answers my questions.
Okay. Yes, please.
I'm Rob Corday from the College of Arts and Sciences. So I definitely am glad that there's an effort to rebuild an honors program and make it more prominent. But, you know, I just wanted to give voice to the fact 5 credits being assigned here is a lot for some degrees. You know, we are capped to degrees at 120 hours. You have a core curriculum that takes up 42 of those. And then in science and engineering and math, you've got to do technical work in sort of the core physics, chemistry, math beyond the core curriculum. And so in my department in meteorology, in order to be employed as a meteorologist with the federal government, there are specific courses you have to take. And by the time you do all of this, we have 9 general electives hours left. And I just think that for honor students, there's a better use than 5 seminar hours on the Aggie core values. And I would rather see those go to academic work. So just wanted to give voice to that.
Go ahead. Do you have feedback?
No, I understand that. And this again would be a minor that they're taking on top of their degree program. So we're not pulling those classes out of their curriculum. We're adding this, and this is something that they've chosen to engage in. Now, while some of the classes in that 13 can feed into their core curriculum. So for instance, in meteorology, if there's an honors class in the curriculum, then that would count for both their curriculum and the honors minor, but the 5 hours would be on top.
Okay, we've got, let's see, we've got Senator Preston Cunningham. And you're muted.
Yes, I had a quick question. I'm out of Ag Leadership Education and Communications, and I was trying to, what was the proposed name of the program again? I thought I heard leadership somewhere in that. Or did I hear it in?
No, it's just honors. It's a honors minor.
Oh, just honors minor. Okay, all right.
Yeah,
I know
does
when
not-
she asked for overlap for the leadership courses. That's why I was trying to look through what leadership courses were they even teaching. So that clarifies my question.
Sure. Senator Hammond?
Yeah, I think this is a great idea. I just have one simple question, and I realized that my camera was backwards before when I raised my hand, so I'm sorry about that. But some students are not allowed to register for more than the required, like usually I think international students. And I was just curious if there's any response on that, because as mentioned before, like computer science, we don't have any extra space in our curriculum. And would this cause a problem for people who are not allowed to register for more than the number of credits because of, usually it's international students?
If they add the minor in advance,
Uh-huh.
then they will
But-
be able to add the extra hours because
Okay,
it'll be part of
perfect.
their
Yeah,
academic requirement.
It was just a logistical question. I don't have a problem at all with the program.
However, I would like to verify with the provost office that the students will not be affected for the extra hours as far as the
That was my worry.
financial compensation that they get for graduating on
Right.
time.
Yeah, yes. So financial aid also is one of the concerns. Usually there's some sort of restrictions in financial aid. So just checking on that so that we're not hurting our students. But I think the program is great. I just was thinking logistically for if there were certain students that wouldn't be able to do that.
And I just confirmed that it would have to exceed 30 hours over their base requirements before it'll
Okay.
start to impact them. And it does not count the hours that they took pre-college.
Okay.
I learned something. How about that? Senator Ramsey?
That-
Oh,
that-
go
that
ahead. You're
sounds
first. You're
reasonable.
next.
Okay. Yeah, I just, again, that was just a logistical worry that I had.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Mike Smotherman, Arts and Sciences. My advisors have told me this is a great idea and I should support it. I just have a couple of questions about funding. It's a good program. It deserves to be funded. And we're just a couple of years out from the great reorganization. And during that time, there were university-wide minors. And the provost's office was adamant that that was a terrible idea, that all minors should be administered through a department at a college so that they could be supported financially through the duration of their existence. And it seems like we're kind of going back outside that model. So I look in the papers that I was given for funding, and it said that you were going to solicit donations to cover this surprisingly expensive minor. So my question would be, why doesn't the provost office just commit the money to support this idea?
Would someone like to come up from the provost, or do you want to address that on behalf of the provost office, Dr. Johnson?
Well, I guess I can wear that particular hat right now. So two things. One, yes, we are definitely going to seek development funding to support the enhancement of our honors program, but we are also requesting funding through the strategic budget process to fund this program through traditional means as well. There's a lot that needs to happen with honors here at Texas A&M. I think we need to grow it. I think the growth is going to cost resources, and it needs to be consistent and base budget, and that's what we're trying to do. There's also significant capital outlays that would be very beneficial to our honors program as well, and that's where some of the development resources are going to be sought.
I'm not speaking for or against, I'm just asking if, since the president just said if something gets increased in one area, something gets decreased in elsewhere, so where is the money going to come from?
Well, the academic affairs budget is where we're seeking to do this, and honors has been right-sized. So they have cut funding in various other aspects of their budget. They've been trimmed, I would say, quite a bit, and some of those funds are going to be used to promote this effort as well.
Great, thank you. Senator Ramsey. Klein, Senator Klein, I'm sorry.
Heather
Alden Abbott.
Klein.
I'm so sorry.
You've only known me for what, 15
Forever,
years?
that's
So.
why.
So Heather Klein, College of Arts and Sciences. I just wanted to make a point of clarification. These honors courses actually will go into general electives for a student if a student still has general electives open, and the program that they're in allows anything with it, you know, like we have anything goes with the exception of, say, kinesiology 199. We have some exclusions in my department. So these courses, unless departments choose to explicitly exclude them, will take up general elective hours that could have been used for other academic pursuits. So I just wanted to clarify that.
Thank you. You got a microphone right there. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Speaker-elect Klein, I just want to say I'm one biased because I was on the subcommittee that looked at this, but I also just want to say I appreciate honors finally being able to do some development. I think that's been a limitation of our honors program for many, many years, and I'm glad that it's finally been viewed as something we can try to get some external investment in.
Thank you. All right, so Senator Townsend.
Yes. Thank you for the discussion and answering those questions and more. So at this point, I believe I can move for approval.
Do we have a second? Senator Cahill is seconded. Any other discussion? All in favor, please say aye or raise your hands. Thank you. All right, any opposed? I'll give everybody a chance to take their hands down if they're not opposing. Okay, so I see 3 hands up for opposing, 4 hands for opposing. Okay. All right, thank you very much. Appreciate it. The motion passes. See, we do good work here, people. Yay. All right. We now move on to committee reports. Does anyone have any questions or concerns with the core curriculum committee annual report found in attachment C? For hands, is there any comments online, Secretary Tarvin? Okay. All right, hearing none, I declare the core curriculum committee report approved as submitted. My hand. All right, next, I'm going to call upon Secretary Tarvin to make the motion to approve attachment D1. This is under new business.
I move approval of attachment D1, creation of the School of Engineering Medicine in attachment D1.
Thank you. Is there any discussion? I do have representatives here from that group if anybody has any questions for them. Yes, Senator Paolini.
Yes, I think we have our interim dean, Dr. Tim Boone. I would like to request recognition of him to speak to the Senate.
Please approach the microphone.
Thank you.
Thank you. Senator Hubbard, do you have something else you'd like to bring up as he's making his way to the microphone? Any
After Dr.
questions?
Boone speaks, I have some questions I would like to raise, so I'll yield the floor to Dr. Boone.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead, sir.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak to the senators. We've spoken to the caucuses. This has been a work in progress. Currently, the engineering medicine is a track within the College of Medicine. We've continued to build our curriculum and develop the curriculum. We've graduated 2 classes, the 3rd one coming up. So we've been doing this business. It allows us flexibility, creativity around the curriculum where we're trying to integrate the two. It's a distinctly different kind of physician we're creating. So it is justified by the nature, and we're only 50 a class. So it's a very small and distinct group of medical students we're training using their engineering background. But I'd be glad to answer any questions.
All right, Senator Hubbard.
Dr. Boone, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. How are you today?
Very good.
Good to see you again. And the question I have is that with the initial inception of the NMED program, we were doing things collaboratively. We have now gone our separate ways, but there's been a lot of I hate to say contention, disillusionment, primarily over the fact that the NMED program has essentially done things their own way, forged their own path, regardless of rules, regulations, doing things by the book. A lot of concern has arisen that they have essentially done what they wanted to do, when they wanted to do it, the way they wanted to do it. What assurances do we have that with the new College of Engineering Medicine that things are actually going to be done the way they're supposed to be done? Accreditation will be done in a timely manner. The LCME approvals, the Higher Education Coordinating Board approvals will actually be done appropriately this time.
We've set a new way of doing business with the College of Medicine. I work very closely with Dean Ware. I have for my entire tenure since the affiliation with Houston Methodist, where I came from. So we've taken a different tact. We brought Jeremy Gibson back, who was very involved in the College of Medicine and College of Medicine's accreditation. He is leading the efforts with the School of Engineering Medicine going forward. We had many meetings about following and working on the strike task force around curriculum and working together to create best practice. All the rules with accreditation will be followed to the T. And although we're proposing a separate school, we're still married at the hip. We're training future physicians. We'll continue to collaborate cooperatively. We have traditional students in Houston. We never want to forget that they're there as well. We often have a fire drill where we need each other. That can't stop. So our relationship will become stronger. Whatever's happened in the past, but we're leading the future with the College of Medicine support and working arm in arm, and Jeremy Gibson's helping me assure you, Dr. Hubbard, that will happen.
Thank you for your reassurance and clarification, sir.
Senator Miranda.
Dr. Boone, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
So I wanted to thank you for having met with the College of Medicine Senate caucus. That has never happened before. We've never had a meeting between the leadership of NMED and the senators of the College of Medicine. And you did mention that you hope to have a new path forward. And I just want to make sure that you understand that is really important to us. It would be disastrous if the new NMED was competing for resources for clerkships and things like that, and it had the unfortunate effect of shutting out College of Medicine from those types of resources. So I take you at your word that you plan on a collaborative and interactive process going forward, and thank you for that.
Thank you.
Senator Sinha.
Hi. So I have a question. So I'm very new to this concept of School of Engineering and Medicine. Is there any specific reason that you wrote engineering medicine, not medicine engineering?
No, it's probably because it was founded as a track within the College of Medicine, but it's a master's in engineering concurrently and integrated with medicine. Because the criteria to become a physician in the United States is so rigid, and as it should be, the medical degree would take precedence in that case in integrating engineering into it. So I think that's the reason it falls the way it is, just because of the standards in the United States regarding accreditation and a medical degree.
Oh,
but we're working very closely with engineering and with the new Dean Bishop and the leadership at the College of Engineering, and I've worked closely. I started September 1. We meet constantly, talk constantly to be sure we're together.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So I would like to, reflect Senator Miranda's views.
Say your
Dr.
name
Boone,
and college.
this is the Banerjee College of Engineering. Also, thank you for taking the time to meet with the engineering caucus. That's really appreciated. I was kind of curious if there is a vision for, in terms of the research activities for NMED, because I think there was an effort to hire a associate dean for research at NMED that never materialized. So I'm kind of wondering what's your vision in terms of what NMED research will be, whether it will be complementary or collaborative with either College of Engineering or College of Medicine, or if there is something going to be that's going to be distinctive about engineering medicine. Thank you.
Thank you, Deb. Yes, we pool resources, and we need biomedical engineering. We need all of engineering, and so the senior associate dean that I'm working with hiring is coming from IBT and Alkek across the street, and again, we'll elevate the leadership and some of the direction in engineering, and we'll begin to share research that's happening literally 100 yards away. It's otherwise never been developed, and students will have the ability to go across the street and work. The biomedical engineers there will do more teaching than they've done before, and so the research will be done collaboratively along with Houston Methodist. We have a huge relationship and capstone projects that are done with researchers in Houston Methodist, so it will not be done in isolation, which makes no sense in something as large as the Texas Medical Center. Be done collaboratively and research across multiple disciplines, heavily with engineering, but not only engineering, but it'll be done in a collaborative way with the institutions that are there. And it makes the most sense, the most logic to be collaborative. And so it won't be standalone. We'll certainly have our own supportive and ad hoc researchers, but it'll be done in a very collaborative spirit around the medical center, especially with A&M across the street at IBT.
Thank you. Senator Hubbard? You're muted. You're muted, sir.
I apologize. Dr. Boone, for those who are not familiar, can you share with the senators the success of the previous students on their step 1 and their residency match rates?
Sure, 100%. We have a 100% pass rate on all our standard exams, both step 1 and step 2, which are the national benchmarks, 100% match rate residencies across the United States. Penn, Mayo, Duke, Johns Hopkins. Our students can basically match anywhere. They're top notch. the average GPA coming in this entering class is 3.83 and 90 percentile in the MCAT exam. We have extremely bright students. They've done extremely well. Thanks for the question, John. We're very proud of the students and the work they're doing and the work they'll continue to do. It's a very competitive program.
Thank you. Any other questions, comments, observations? Senator Cecilio.
Thank you, Speaker Price. Senators, I'd like to weigh in support of Dean Boone and Dean Jeremy Gibson. I've had the privilege to listen to Senator Perlini teach, and he's excellent and superior as he teaches these superior students. They're proud to be Aggies. It's critical that we must collaborate. The past is the past, and it's not always been the best past, to be honest, but those days are behind us, and we're going to go forward together. I appreciate so much our caucus representing the views of the School of Medicine, or the now College of Medicine, back to College of Medicine, and raising the issues with Dean Boone and Dean Gibson. The collaboration with Houston Methodist is essential for the students at the College of Medicine and at the School College of Engineering Medicine. So these two colleges together ought to well serve the people of Texas, the nation, and the world. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Anyone else? Thank you so much for your time,
Thank you.
Senator. All right, so we already have a motion to approve. Discussion. All in favor, please say aye or raise your hands. Thank you. Any opposed? Allowing for time for people to put their hands down. All right, so the motion passes. Thank you very much. Bang the gavel on that one too, make it official. Next, Secretary Tarvin will please make the motion to approve attachment D2.
I move approval of attachment D2, fall 2024 degree candidates in attachment D2.
This is one of the most important things that we do as faculty, because when they get up and say at the graduation ceremony, on recommendation of the faculty of this university, this is it. This is when we're making the recommendation. So is there any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
And raise your hands, or you all can say aye and they can raise your hands. Awesome. Thank you very much. Any opposed? Okay, it looks like the motion passes. Thank you very much. Those people can breathe a sigh of relief that if they pass their finals and meet everything else, they get to graduate. So yay, good job. All right, so informational item in attachments E1 and E2 are the preamble to the Code of Conduct and the Code of Conduct. The Code of Conduct was developed by some really hardworking, long-suffering faculty members and administrators, but mostly faculty members, even the administrators who are faculty members, through this. And there are multiple iterations. And they have developed a code that is pretty concise. It's, in my personal opinion, pretty reasonable, but you may agree to disagree. That's okay. But the preamble is the important part also, because it provides the context. And part of the context of that is simply that there are a lot of places in the SAPs and the procedure of the university where it says faculty and unprofessional conduct. And they've listed a number of those in that footnote at the bottom, where it says faculty must not engage in unprofessional conduct, and if they do, bad things will happen to them. But nowhere does it say what unprofessional conduct is. And so as a faculty, the faculty decided that it would be a good idea if we, as a faculty, defined unprofessional behavior ourselves. We owned it. We held each other to a standard. And so that way it wouldn't be defined by someone else, either left up to bias potentially, someone making a decision without any kind of guidance, then it help to provide those guardrails. So I'm going to ask former Speaker Rice, who's been very involved in this, to come up and be prepared if you want to say anything about this, and then be prepared to answer questions if anybody has any questions. And so while he's coming to the microphone, I ask that each of you, again, this is going to be an email that will go out to your faculty, but ask your faculty, ask your colleagues, do they have concerns? Help provide the context. And if you don't understand the context of why we're doing this, then please let me know. We can reframe that. I'm happy to come talk to people as well. I personally think this is in our benefit, to the benefit of our faculty, so that we get to own that term that is existent in so many things, but it's not left up to us to define as of yet.
Well, Angie, I think that what I would add is that as someone who was a member of all three task forces, I would go back to the first one and say that nearly a majority of the initial task force were current members of the Faculty Senate. And they were, in developing this, really looking at something that would be both beneficial for and protective of faculty. And I think that subsequently, when we reviewed it, made some adjustments to it, that was still the same philosophy that we were operating under. And then the Academic Freedom Task Force looked at it and said, you know, we think that it is crucial to have something that faculty themselves have approved and put in place that would help define, especially the circumstances where pressures that come to bear dealing with academic freedom might play out. And so that has brought us where we are. I think that every one of those task forces was made up of majority faculty. And I'm going to say that again, majority faculty. If there were administrators on the task force, they were in the minority. And the faculty felt that this would not just be beneficial, but is really necessary, especially at this point in time.
Questions? Please come to the microphone if you have questions.
Thank you, Senator Rice. Yeah, I'm Francesca Marini, College of Performance, Visualization, and Fine Arts. Yeah, I think we need a lot of input from our faculty, so like give enough time for the input. I personally think it's a good idea. It is pros and cons, but I think if we get real input, it is a good thing. This may be a separate conversation, but like I had a question. There is an item in the actual code that says that the leadership of a college or department has the ultimate decision on addressing unprofessional behavior. I agree, but I personally been lucky in the places I worked in, but we know that not every leadership is addressing things the same way across campus. So we may need to think that point out a little more.
So, and faculty still have, again, deciding, but faculty still have the opportunity to appeal that and to have another group hearing that. And I think that's the important part, which is why it defines in the academic freedom, it talks about unprofessional conduct related to academic freedom. It talks about the grievance entire process related to that. So I think it's important to note that we do have an appeal, even if they decide it's unprofessional. I'm looking at, yes, I'm looking at Dr. Lynch. Do you have anything you want to add to that from the appeal standpoint? And while you're coming to the microphone, yes, Senator Bright.
Oh, yeah, so I so certainly I will discuss this with my colleagues, but I do have a statement and a question. One is that you know I I don't find it, completely accurate to say that we don't have a code of conduct. I mean, I think our rules, University Rule 120199 M1 section 6.3 is a code of conduct, and is one that is that says essentially, give the conditions that we could lose tenure. And certainly, like anything, there are words that are not defined. It's going to be legally defined. Same as words are in this code of conduct that we have are not all defined. I mean, they're going to be left up to interpretation. And one of my concern is if we're is how things are used that we didn't intend for it to be used for, and especially in this kind of environment. And I'll be less concerned about this if we weren't doing this in a time where they're literally writing laws, and that we could sort of give them some ideas here. But so my question here is, okay, so we have this 6.3 that I said is a form of a kind of code of conduct. So with this one that we have now, or that you're proposing, so what are we? I mean, so what if this thing gets placed literally in this document, 6.3, and says, yes, we're going to include everything also that you listed in your code of conduct, or we're going to cherry pick certain things that we agree we want to emphasize. For example, if you make statements about a person's, one of the statements you have in this code of conduct, states that if someone makes a derogatory statement about their field or something like that, I mean, that's pretty broad. So are we expecting this for teeth to be made, or I mean, what is this the end goal here? Are we policing behavior or what?
So so again, there's already teeth in the sense that an administrator could say anything is unprofessional conduct, unfortunately, in the extreme hypothetical, and that there are sanctions. And remember, this isn't just about someone losing tenure. We have a huge portion of our faculty who don't have tenure, and so they still are under sanctions, different sanctions for unprofessional behavior. And so again, there's not a definition that has been made by the faculty to say what that was. And I did talk to the AUP, and I think that I have to check back with them, but I believe even the AUP president for the state was in support of it, but I'll double check on that because I don't want to say that that's true without affirming that. But they sounded interested, I would say that. So.
Yeah, so as a member of the AUP leadership, I don't think he has endorsed this, but nonetheless, I mean, we have a right to do what we want to do, or what have you. But yeah, I'm just concerned about, again, this being used in a way that we didn't intend for it to be used, especially in this political environment. I mean, are we expecting for this code to have teeth? Are we expecting to police each other's behavior?
Go ahead, Dr. Lynch.
Well, so I was going to speak to the aspect of the appeals that were available, which was asked about a moment ago. So currently, if faculty receive a sanction that they believe is a violation of their civil rights, there's a process through the Office of Civil Rights to appeal those sanctions and ask for redress. If faculty are issued a sanction that they believe is a violation of their academic freedom, we now have an Academic Freedom Council that can hear those concerns and issue an evaluation. And always, faculty who receive sanctions can go through either the University Grievance Council or the CAFR committee if it's an issue related to dismissal or loss of tenure. In terms of potential political issues, so I would say I was not a member of the original task force, so Dale might have additional insights, but I was present during the revisitation of the code developed by that original task force in 2022. And part of what that committee did is go through the original draft and update the draft, taking into account our current cultural context, our societal context, and our academic concerns. And they made made several revisions to the language because of that. So if the Faculty Senate chooses to move forward with the Code of Conduct, I think it would be reasonable to also build in a timeline to revisit the language in the code so that it takes into account our current context and any issues that have come up in higher education or within the local institution.
And along that lines, one of the things that we're proposing to do is to have this reside with the Faculty Senate so that we can have the revisiting as often as we need. We can make amendments in the future if it's, I mean, it's pretty robust, I would say, because I've looked at it, tried to, and talked to other people who've looked at it. It's very, very robust. But if there are things that we need to protect ourselves against in the future that we haven't even seen yet, that just saying that makes me shudder, that we as the Senate have the capacity to make those changes too.
Could I also add to the point that Leonard was making that you addressed it when you said it is going to reside with the Senate. And so if someone like Senator Bright looks at an issue and says, I think that this is being used against faculty and we need to modify this aspect of the code, then it is something that he or someone else can bring to the Senate, and the Senate, if they agree, can vote on it and change the code. So I think it even has that level of protection built into it, that the code lives with us and we are the body that can change it at will. So whenever something necessitates change, it will be easy for us to do that.
And thank you. And it's having at least a starting place, having something to protect us sooner rather than later is probably a good idea. But it's something that we can then again own ourselves. Senator Haney. You're muted, sir.
Thank you, Speaker Price. Adam Haney, College of Marine Sciences, Maritime Studies. I'd like to take the moment to thank the people who were a part of the revisions and actually addressing and listening to the concerns that we have put forward. I have been pretty vocal in that, and I appreciate the time and consideration put into that. I would ask that there be two considerations before we vote. One being to combine the preamble and the code of conduct together so that they pass as one unit and exist as one unit instead of passing them as two separate votes. And two, I would also request the consideration that under the line that refers to unprofessional conduct as being denigrating of other schools of thought, lines of research, I would respectfully request we include other campuses in that, of not being derogatory towards other campuses. Because unfortunately, our colleagues at College Station do have some of those comments, as well as some of us at Galveston also tend to make derogatory comments about main campus. So if we could include that to cut that out, I would greatly appreciate that. But thank you to everyone who has worked hard on this.
I would say, Senator Haney, I would say that the other schools of thought actually is a very broad thing that would obviously, I mean, to me, that includes the other campuses, but I would be concerned about delineating too much simply because if there's so many other things that we might think of, that we might not denigrate, you know, different things, different organizations. So I would hope, and perhaps we need to add that into the preamble of talking about the breadth of what that means rather than trying to specify it out. So that's just my thought, that because to Senator Bright's point, if we, you know, what we have, maybe we think we're leaving out something else. And so if we take that as a broad term, that might be helpful.
I would just ask for that consideration because this is a specific issue.
No, of course, I understand. Thank you so much. Senator Miranda.
Just a quick question before my main question. So we are not voting on this today, right?
That is correct. No, this will be sent out to all of the faculty. And so that they have an opportunity to engage. And this is the important part of what we do as a Senate. We are elected, almost said hired, elected to represent the faculty, our constituents. This is the very essence of what we do as a Senate. And so it is incredibly important that you engage, that you email. They might actually be paying attention once they file their grades because they're in kind of a panic mode right now. But give the opportunity to talk to people and to help them understand what this means for them and to provide feedback, and then you can vote according to what your constituents asked. Senator Ariave.
Actually, my apologies. That was the
Oh, no, go ahead.
question
I'm
before
sorry.
my main question. So sometimes language has a way of being interpreted differently. And so the issue of denigrating other schools of thought can have kind of strange outcomes. Just as an example, let's say we have a school of thought that proposes atheism, for example, right? Somebody might almost by definition say that it denigrates, taking the position of atheism denigrates the school of thought that supports a religion. You see, just the sheer taking of a position. And I just wanted to put that out there to just, be cautious about whether the sheer act of taking a position might be seen inherently as denigrating another position.
Yeah, I understand that, but the benefit or the backup for this is that we have multiple faculty groups that would be providing a review. So it's not just an administrator right now who could say, if you don't like my field of research, it's unprofessional behavior and I'm going to ding you for that. And I'm not saying that anybody would do that, but there's an extreme example. But now that we have some guidance onto that, I think denigrating is a much broader, a more specific term. And we also are pointing out the fact that we have our different groups to help, whether it's the academic freedom, which could be falling underneath that, or the grievance committee to help. But I could be wrong. Go ahead, Senator Rice.
Yes, I just wanted to say that I agree with Senator Haney in his proposal that we actually put the preamble, attach it officially to the code of conduct. I think that is an excellent idea and we should do that.
Thank you. Senator Ariane.
Yes, I want to make a comment. I share Regio's concerns, but I think my concerns are even deeper than that. I try to conduct myself with professionalism as much as I can, right? But I have strong opinions, and many of us should have strong opinions because we're faculty, we're intellectuals, we're scientists, and to me, like I am fine with the conduct, the code of conduct mostly, right? But I really strongly oppose, items within this code of conduct that seem to tangentially, at least, police opinions, right? And it is very easy. We are very opinionated as faculty, right? I'm one of them, right? It's also very easy for us to feel offended by other people that think very differently from us. And it's very easy for us to argue, right? That someone is denigrating my own beliefs because they think otherwise and they're vocal about it. More importantly, the code of conduct seems to cover any public interactions that we have, even outside of Texas A&M. I think that is completely unreasonable, right? We are, faculty, right? But I'm not 100% a faculty in my life, right? I understand my position and my responsibilities, my power, my duties to the state and my students and my colleagues and the administration as faculty. But this is not 100% of who I am, right? If I'm on vacation and I want to vent about something, I don't use any, social network other than LinkedIn. But if I were to join, Facebook or Instagram or whatever, and I vent about something, I should have the freedom to vent about something, right? In my personal capacity. So I am, I will oppose this code of conduct as is written when the time comes, on the grounds that, I am fine with, holding each of us to conduct, right? But opinions are not conduct. And we shouldn't be held, we like this code of conduct shouldn't cover everything, every type of interaction that we have as private individuals, right? So it has to be very circumscribed. And, again, it's extremely easy. And, by the way, I don't find it reassuring that there's groups of people other than administrators that can look at this, because we have seen how, like last summer, we had instances where faculty were immediately referred to some type of procedure, even if nothing happened to them in the end. It was extremely stressful to be through a process like that, right? So, I do not know what rationale people are using, to include these items in the code of conduct, but I strongly oppose them, and I will
So
vote.
I want to speak to that about last summer, because that person did not have a code of conduct, and that faculty member's actions would have been protected explicitly by this code of conduct. And they did not have any kind of guidance to protect them, because some administrator somewhere got to define that unprofessional behavior.
I'm sorry, but like the argument here in the code of conduct is that you cannot make denigrating comments against something. That is precisely what got her in trouble, and she was put into a process because of that, right? How is having this into a code of conduct prevents anyone from being put into a process, even though like afterwards we could be cleared of those actions, right? So I think that we shouldn't even put it in place, because I think that is trying to police speech of faculty.
Thank you.
Okay, so the Banerjee College of Engineering. Like to, sort of echo what Senator Arroyo was saying. And I was doing some Google search. Since this is a discussion, I hope I can be a little verbose. So I looked up, so there is a quote by Marcus Cicero, I guess a Roman, philosopher, writer. The more laws a society has, the less justice. And then the other one, I forget who said that, but the country with the least amount of laws has the least amount of lawlessness. So I have a feeling that, we are trying to over judiciary, or whatever the term is, ourselves. Especially when I look at the preamble, there is UGC, there is CAFERT. So I'm wondering, what is it that this code of conduct is putting on the table that's not already covered under UGC and CAFERT? That's one of the things I'm wondering about. The second part I'm wondering about is the code of conduct, talks about all those things that we are supposed to do and not supposed to do, but it doesn't mention an enforcement mechanism. So what happens if there is a violation of this code of conduct? How is it going to be enforced? Unless that's specified, I think this document is very weak. So a procedure needs to be in place that not only defines what those code of conducts are, but if there is a violation, how that is going to be prosecuted. I don't see that being in there. And without that, I think it doesn't have a leg to stand.
So that's in the SAPs, where the SAPs refer to unprofessional conduct.
Right.
And that's in the at the end of the preamble. So there are SAPs that say that faculty can be, for lack of a better word, punished for unprofessional conduct, but nowhere is unprofessional conduct defined.
Mm-hmm.
And so a single so there's already enforcement for unprofessional behavior, there's already penalties for it, but there's no definition. And so the problem is that an administrator could then say that, Angie Hill Price was in violation, had unprofessional conduct for whatever, because I was, made a face at somebody said something. And that would be their opinion, there would be no guidance, nothing to protect me to say, this is not reasonable as far as our actual code of conduct is concerned. And then, so that provides guidance to those administrators. Of course, it's not going to protect if somebody wants to be having malintent. We'll never be protected against that, except as we go through the appeals process. But it does lend some guidelines that we don't have right now. And right now it is up to the administrator's individual discretion, opinion. If they want to go after somebody, they can say whatever they want, unfortunately.
So that raises a second dimension or nuance to this discussion, which is if two faculty members have a difference of opinion and let's say they decide to exchange emails over it, and our emails are subject to open records. So anybody, any taxpayer of the state of Texas or of US can access our emails.
Mm-hmm.
And you understand where I'm referring to, you know.
Yeah, so
And-
right
and
now.
so- No, hang on. So if in a situation like that, somebody who's not a member of the Aggie community decides to take offense over this email exchange and then does a public threatening, I suspect that, you know, this code of conduct doesn't provide a security or a sort of a protection to those two faculty that might have a difference of opinion.
Well, there is no protection at all right now.
Right.
There's nothing that says that expressing your opinion is okay. There's nothing that says that that's okay. So having this come into effect gives us a little bit more guidance on what we expect each other to do as a behavior standpoint.
But since Faculty Senate is going to be sort of the guardian of this one, maybe we should put some clauses in there that puts in a procedure where when two faculty members have a difference of opinion, there is some kind of protection from Faculty Senate or the administration so that they are not exposed to the general public for, you know, threatening behavior.
Well, unfortunately, people can still FOIA. I mean, as the person who got
We lost audio.
No, I don't disagree with that, but what I'm saying is if we are going to be doing it, you know, might as well put that extra protection in there.
Thank you.
As a suggestion.
Thank you. All right, Senator Falvo, I'm going to bounce back and forth here. Senator Falvo?
Thank you, Angie. So if it helps anyone who's on the call, who's sort of on the line, I was one of the super late people to sort of get on board with this. For me, I have a lot of the same concerns. I think that it is crazy vague, but I also don't think that there's anything that could be more specific. I think that it's a little repetitive and that we already do have, so I'm on board with a lot of the criticism here, but what is making me, I'm in favor of this reluctantly and unfortunately and unhappily, what is making me there is the procedure. And the procedure is what we need and the procedure is what we do not have. And the procedure is what's outlined by the new preamble. So again, I'm going to echo Senator Haney. He's in my caucus. Obviously, we've talked about this together. I want to echo his thanks for those that have written the preamble and have sort of modified some of those things. The reality is that we do not live in a world where we have any real protection, and we live in a world where we are targeted. So to me, supporting this is living in the world that is, not the world that I want. And I really appreciate the way that, you know, the feedback has been considered and the way that folks have worked around trying to make some of this. But for me, the ticket here is the process. I don't function under the fiction that we will ultimately have that much control or protection against those who do not want to see us speak on certain things. But I do think that this at least says we are willing to have the framework to clean house. And I think that that's really important right now. I also think it's really important to have a system through which to talk about academic freedom that involves faculty. So I'm really grateful for the revisions. And for those that are on the fence on this, a viewpoint to consider being that I'm not thrilled that this has to exist, but again, world as it is, not world as I want it to be.
Thank you. Senator Babst.
So I'm in line with much of this, but Senator Miranda's concern sparked a concern in me, and I am curious whether really it goes far enough. You know, imagine a case in which, say, there's a faculty member who's a bit of a wild ball and, you know, goes to a party and makes some comment. Someone finds that offensive. Let's say that they make strong beliefs about the age of the earth. Maybe they believe the age of the earth is really old based upon scientific evidence. And someone finds that the way that they are making those statements is denigrating. Where does that decision actually come in about where in the line denigrating is crossed? Is it the person who hears it, or the person who said it, or a third party? And I think that's an important consideration to think about, right? Like, because you could imagine that there's ways that could be denigrating or offensive, and there's ways that it absolutely could not be denigrating or offensive. And in the other direction, you could imagine someone making comments that they think that the Earth is very, very young, and that those geologists with their mass spectrometers are full of it. And they feel that someone who hears that might feel those comments are very denigrating or offensive, right? And so I'm just curious about how we're actually defining what denigrating and offensive is, and whether we're actually going far enough in putting words towards defining those terms.
Thank you. Senator Rice and Dr. Lynch, I'd be curious as to how that's being enforced right now.
Yeah, I want to say that the intent that existed there was for to protect people whose research, for example, is being denigrated by colleagues, to have them stand up in departmental meetings, for example, and put down someone else's research. That was something that we considered to be a denigrating activity. No one ever talked about the idea that, you know, you express a personal opinion outside that could be interpreted that way. I suppose that is something that we could certainly, if a case comes up, we have the opportunity to amend it or better define it. But I also think that we need to recognize that one of the principles behind having a code like this is there are lots of things that happen that don't rise to the level of a CAFERT appeal. And it's things like bullying. And I think we all know that bullying exists on this campus, and many of us have seen that happen. And this says that that's unprofessional conduct. That gives the person who's being bullied the opportunity to go to their department head and say, we have unprofessional conduct in our department, and give some facts, and people can begin to look at that and make decisions about it. So it's things that might stay totally within the department and go nowhere else. But having some explicit guidelines helps protect that person being bullied.
And right now, I think it's in this, even the department head is the person who would say, yeah, that's denigration. And then there would be people above them who would also have to make that call. Publicly, we like sunshine on those decisions.
That's right. Right now, it would be the department head that would make that judgment in almost all cases, whoever the faculty member supervisor is. I just wanted to add that, you know, the wording in the code that was developed, the committee attempted to address this issue by specifically stating that it's pervasive or egregious comments, particularly when such comments are intended to affect others' working conditions or academic freedom. So instead of just saying that these are derogatory comments or denigrating comments, that these fulfill those conditions of being pervasive or egregious, and that they're impinging on others' ability to work and to pursue their knowledge.
Thank you. Okay, let's see. I'm going to go to Senator Hutchinson. Go ahead.
Howdy, this is Senator Hutchinson, Civil Engineering. A couple questions I have that we need to think of as a group. First off, is it correct for us to pass a flawed procedure so we have a procedure? Because we've heard a lot of people say this isn't the best thing, but it's a start. I know there's a lot of laws that have been passed that were flawed and then became, it was much more difficult to change them than what we're kind of talking about right here. So that's one of my things. The other thing is some of the examples and all that are being used in here. I do recall a time that we actually had a researcher that got research money to see about whether you could turn lead to gold.
Seawater.
Yep.
It was getting
Yeah.
gold out of seawater.
Someone calling them out, would that be denigrating? And let's just go one more. It was science that was discussing eugenics. So at what point is that, if someone calls someone out for pushing that? I mean, there's some stuff here that I don't know that we need to, it's very ambiguous where something could be denigrating something that later on we look back at and go, well, you know, that person was right. So that's just a couple of my concerns here. And like you were saying, you start enumerating things without a clear idea of how you're enumerating them can cause a lot of harm down the line. So just wanted to say that.
Sure. So there's no procedure here. This is just saying that this is what unprofessional behavior is. The procedures already exist. Those are already in SAPs and everything else, just to clarify. Go ahead.
So I've heard all these concerns. I guess the way I'm viewing it, I'd rather have a code of conduct that we develop than a code of conduct that is being developed for us by an outside entity. And I think it sends a message that we have actually thought about this and have come to some agreement on how we're going to behave, especially since faculty senates now are certainly in the news in Texas. So that's why I'm in favor of this. And I do know a lot of people have put a lot of work over many years in doing this. So I'm sure they've thought a lot about what they put in that document. And again, it's not a procedure that already exists. So I think this is an important addition to what we have already built in terms of academic freedom and changes to other things.
Senator Hammond, you haven't spoken on this yet.
Yeah, I've been just listening, just thinking a lot during these conversations, and some of the things do concern me. I guess one of the main things that I thought I heard from maybe Heather is one of the big protections that this has is because right now the department head makes most of the decisions. And so that seems procedural, not sort of defining what is or is not denigrating or whatever wording. So I guess I was just trying to figure out what this, I'm starting to agree with a lot of the fear that people are bringing regarding this and worrying about as things change and the interpretations. You know, we go back to Galileo, and he was certainly denigrating people who didn't believe that the earth was the center of the universe. So I do have some fears here, and the things that I've heard that are mostly defending this is because the department head makes most of the decisions, and that seems procedural to me. But I also heard just from Andrew that it's not nothing about this is procedural. So I guess I'm on the fence of, I'm starting to be a little bit fearsome of this document. That's all, just getting my small opinion.
So yeah, it's that a department head, we already have lots of SAPs that say faculty can't engage in unprofessional behavior, like I said. An administrator gets to decide what that is. So if they decide that going to a Senate meeting is unprofessional behavior, or speaking out against something that's in your college is unprofessional behavior, right now they can do that. There's nothing that provides any kind of guidelines. Now, they can still go through CAFRA, they still can go through all the processes, but we'd really like to protect the faculty before it even gets there, because that is such a challenging and fatiguing process. So we also don't have anything that explicitly talks about academic freedom and in the code of conduct about being able to say things in your class. We don't actually have that anywhere written out in our SAPs or any kind of document that says that's not unprofessional behavior to be able to talk about things in your class. So that was the thought there, was taking something that has no definition and owning the definition ourselves.
It
But
almost
denigrating
seems
to me
like
would be saying that research is stupid rather than saying that research is not based in fact, or that research is problematic because of this. Those are two very different things.
I guess I'm almost wondering if the whole document should be written in the inverse of what is not considered unprofessional conduct, and that would be more protective of the faculty if it were written in the exact opposite form of these things are considered acceptable, and that gives more freedom rather than the idea that instead defining things that are unacceptable, then people can interpret them in various ways. And then if you're saying what is not acceptable, what is permitted through the code of conduct, I think that provides a lot more protection, and then people can still make the decisions of all the other things. The world's going to change and everything's going to, there are going to be lots of things that are borderline that aren't in there. But yeah, that's just my 2 cents, that the inverse might be a little bit more protective.
Thank you. Senator Bright, you have your hand up.
Yeah, so I would say that academic freedom in the classrooms actually is defined in our policies, and they address that directly. So that is again 12.0199M1 section 2.1. So that gives a very clear definition of academic freedom. So what I would say is, I would emphasize that what we're really doing in trying to define, and I absolutely agree with what Tracy has said, trying to define what unprofessional is, we're actually opening up a huge chasm. This gives so many holes, so many opportunities to be abused. When I look at this, I virtually believe that any speech that someone says can be drawn up on any of these, one or at least one of these lines in this document. It is that broad. It is that open. We're actually expanding the rooms for this to be abused against us. And instead, I absolutely agree, and I think I said this before, we should be defining what is not unprofessional conduct. And that definitely gives us much more room to define things in a very positive way, as opposed to defining it in ways that quite frankly, if I'm hearing correctly, this can be used to fire a professor. This can be used to literally get rid of us. I think we just, okay, no, I'm sorry. I think that this is going to blow a hole in our, and one last comment. I think things like this really works when you're dealing with a society that's not as diverse as we are. We just have a diverse, group of people. We have different personalities. We come from different fields. Certainly our individual professional fields have code of ethics. It's much easier to kind of wrap our heads around that, as opposed to try to build this across this entire university in this kind of a political environment, using very nebulous terms that actually expands for many people what unprofessional conduct can be and can be weaponized against us.
Thank you.
I don't know if the other people on Zoom want to talk first, or?
Well, it's your turn.
Okay, sure. So just to, respond to what, Speaker-elect Klein mentioned, outside entities defining things for us instead of us defining it for ourselves. Even if we define terms for ourselves, nothing prevents outside entities from stepping in and defining things for themselves. So, considering that, I think we are over legislating ourselves by putting this, extra sets of, sort of constraints on the faculty. Unless there is some kind of protection mentioned, and unless there is some kind of procedure specified in there where, explicitly faculty senate is going to be the governing authority, I think we are putting ourselves more in terms of risk as faculty than getting ourselves extra protection by this document. That's my personal view.
Thank you. Senator Arriave.
Yes, so I want to push back on several fronts. The first one we are policing ourselves because we are afraid of other people policing us, and we believe naively that setting up a procedure is enough protection. We know that the proper process doesn't work, right? We went from a process by which, the evaluation of certificates and minors was with the faculty to a historical event where it went all the way to the Board of Regents, and the Board of Regents made decisions on academic matters for us, right? So clearly, this argument that we better set up procedures, so, such and such cannot make decisions, that affect us in an arbitrary way doesn't work. So I don't think it's a proper justification for what we're doing here. The second thing is, in principle, I favor a code of conduct. But I think that it should be revised. The argument that Andrew and others are making, we work on this for so many years. Clearly some of us are not very happy with the outcome of this, right? So we are asking for revisions because we don't think that, actually we think, and I agree with Senator Bright, this opens the door for abuse from others. The third thing that I want to, that I really push strongly against is the fact that this is not defining our conduct only as faculty. This is defining our conduct as people, right? It says here that engaging in unprofessional interactions in person or online, including personal insults, abusive language, misrepresenting others. I tend to be cordial. I'm forceful in my opinion. I try to never offend people, though sometimes I offend people, right? But there's freedom, right, of speech. We are free as citizens to insult other people in our personal capacity, right? Okay? And this code of conduct, it seems to me, is setting further limits to our freedom of speech than we would have as citizens. So apparently, by following this code of conduct, we have less freedom.
Okay, so first of all, it's not a process. Just want to clarify that.
No.
And second of all, let me read section 2, item 1. The code applies to faculty members defined by University Rule 12.0.1.99.m1 in all aspects of their professional life at the university, including interactions with other faculty, staff, students, and the public at large as a faculty member, by establishing standards of conduct to which faculty members are expected to adhere. It does not apply to the personal lives of faculty members. So I just want to clarify that.
I stand corrected on that, but I'm just gonna show, I'm gonna use, item 2.e, right? Engaging in unprofessional interactions in person or online, including personal insults, abusive language, or misrepresenting others. That statement could be misunderstood very easily, right? And as I said before, you should be free to say that an idea is wrong, right? But other people may, mischaracterize that strong opinion that you have about an idea as being, insulting, or by, as you using abusive language, right? So my problem, and I think that Senator Bright and, Senator Miranda and others have had the same opinion. The issue here is how, while we are writing in this code of conduct, how is this going to be interpreted by others that may actually abuse this document, to damage faculty and put their jobs in jeopardy? That is my biggest concern here.
Thank you. Senator Carpenter?
I hope y'all can hear me. I apologize. I pulled over. I'm on the road. I am a physician, which in the state of Texas is arguably the most highly regulated profession, not just within academia, but writ large across the entire state. I can tell you that without self-regulation, without self-determination, you would not have the healthcare that you have in the state of Texas right now. Were it not for the Texas Medical Association, were it not for physicians specifically within the state of Texas stepping up and writing codes of conduct, and more particularly self-determination and self-policing, you would not have the ability to receive the healthcare that you do in the state of Texas, which quite frankly is the envy of a lot of other places because of things like tort reform. Decisions should not be made out of fear. Very humbly, I would put forward that there's nothing in here, as you said, Speaker, that says anything about anyone's personal life. The fact of the matter is, you do not have a right to go and insult someone out in public. You do not have the right to go and insult people and not have repercussions at this university. And I can tell you from direct experience within the College of Medicine and Health Science Center that we have had staff and faculty that have had repercussions because of their behavior outside of the university and their professionals, like not having anything to do with SAPS or with this personal code of conduct. I strongly encourage you to not make decisions based out of fear, but out of facts. And the facts are that you live in a world right now where you, as a professional and as a professor, are under direct threat because there is no delineation with regards to what is and is not acceptable behavior on this campus. Until such behavior is defined, until we have something like this code of conduct, your risk is markedly higher than it is once you actually have rules that are set forth. That's my opinion. I come out in strong support of this. Thank you and have a great night.
Thank you, Senator Carpenter. Go ahead, please.
Hi, I'm mostly in favor of the code. I don't want to take conversation out of track, but I would change the word denigrating here because the connotation that it carries.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Mine's going to be real quick. I just wanted to, I wanted to say, and this might be unprofessional behavior, but whoop to Dr. Hammond and Dr. Bright. I agree that maybe one of the biggest problems we have is this telling us this is bad behavior, and we really should word this as this is acceptable behavior and go from there. So kind of rewording this in the positive as opposed to the negative.
I think the reason it was written that way is because our SAPs specifically say unprofessional conduct, not professional conduct. And so the attempt was to define the unprofessional conduct because that was where the opinion comes in of someone saying you're behaving unprofessionally. And I can't say, well, what is your framework for that?
Then in that case, I think we should at least add the professional. This is what we consider unprofessional. This would be professional, and actually put up some boundaries as far as that goes.
Thank you.
Angie, this is, I can't access my tool, so I can't raise my hand. Would it be okay if I?
Yes, please, go ahead. Go ahead.
I'm terribly sorry. I wanted to raise my hand, but my phone doesn't allow me to do that. So I think the concerns that, and I share the concerns of Senator Miranda and Arroyave and others related to this phraseology of denigrating, and that denigrating criticism could be misconstrued as denigrating. So I think there's a very simple solution. All you have to do is add a couple clauses to say nothing in this code of conduct shall be construed as prohibiting professors from substantive criticism of other fields, disciplines, schools of thought, or their colleagues. It should not be, if I want to criticize sociology, I should be allowed to criticize sociology. And if I want to criticize the research of my colleague, I should be allowed to criticize the research of my colleague. We just need to make sure that criticism, substantive criticism of the methods, the research questions or whatever, the language can be clarified later, but just to make sure that substantive criticism cannot be construed as denigrating. And I think if we do that, I think most of the concerns people here have would go away. Thank you.
Thank you. Senator Cahill?
I just wanted to say that based on the conversation we're having here, I think that part of the issue we're having is we're talking past each other a little bit. There seem to be three different concerns. One genesis for this seems to be people being jerks to other faculty members in email or bullying, as Senator Rice said. That's one, there's stuff in here about basically, stuff we wouldn't accept from students, right? The second thing, as Senator Kolosinski just said, was we're talking about critique amongst ourselves about different fields and different approaches. within a field. And the third thing that we seem to be talking about is outside input, outside use of this to attack specific faculty members or programs. And I don't think we're going to actually come to an agreement on this until we realize we're coming from three different perspectives. And I don't have a solution for that, but we do seem to, as I sit here and listen, someone will say something on one thing or on the other, I would hope, coming back to what Senator Rice said, we can all agree we should not be jerks to each other. I'm a little stunned to actually have to read that faculty should not be rude to each other in email. But I don't know, maybe I've been rude in email. I don't know. You can tell me. So
No, I just think it's the.
thank you.
And I think, I don't know if Dr. Lynch wants to share some scrubbed examples of
Yeah,
problems.
I know that people are bound by privacy, but it's kind of hard for me to sit here and hear about other, faculty members being bullied in department meetings. I'm like, damn, in civil, we would never stand for that. And I wouldn't stand for that in the first year program of engineering either. So, or I'm a mean administrator in the first year program. So
It happens enough that there are a lot of faculty who want to be able to say to someone, that's not professional behavior, and there's nothing to provide any guidance to protect them. But it does happen, unfortunately. Okay, Dr. Hammond, Senator Hammond.
Yeah, again, I'm not against the code of conduct. I just wanted to give one more example. And this is an example actually on campus and acting as a faculty member. And that is faculty discuss. And I have read every email for faculty discuss over the past, I think, almost 3 years. And many of them could be interpreted from an outside reader as being denigrated. But what I've also seen is that, and there are many people on this call, I have seen that people who have opposite opinions be very truthful about how they feel, and then eventually get to sometimes shared agreement, sometimes just agree to disagree. But I have seen faculty that initially were on completely different sides, would be considered, argumentative against each other, now being friends and speaking together on some things and speaking against each other on other things. And that has only happened because of the freedom that they had. And I do worry that some of those emails could be construed as being disrespectful because some people just speak in a different tone of voice. But now I've seen people who looked like they were being disrespectful eventually get to a common ground and defend each other on other spaces. So I guess, and that is within the faculty context. And so I've seen, yes, people have different ways of talking, and people have, over time, have watched each other, how people have different ways of talking, and are like, oh, well, that's just how so-and-so speaks. That's just how so-and-so speaks. And this is how we can get together and different. I'm not saying that you should be disrespectful, just certain things might come off more harshly based on just how people voice. And I'm just worried about an outside person thinking that might misinterpret that. And I do see that there has been a lot of growth of people being a lot more respectful of different perspectives. I never post on there, but I've read every single post. And I've seen people who really initially looked like they 100% disagree, maybe still don't 100% disagree, but there are people on there are many people on this call who know that I disagree with many of the things that they do, but it's only through discussion. And I just worry that sometimes if you're discussing, different people might just misinterpret just a strong feeling as being disrespectful. And there are lots of people on this call who have participated in these discussions and now have learned to respect each other, even though they disagree with a lot of the things. And I think that that's what academia is about. And so that's my concern just about the including of the faculty thing. It's just the possibility of misinterpretation. And what I don't want is for faculty to be afraid of disagreeing with each other. And disagreement comes in different voices and people say it differently. Of course, I am someone who has spoken over and over again about how I think we all need to respect each other. But I do think that there is a danger of people disagreeing as being misinterpreted as disrespecting. So, which are not the same things.
Thank you. I got off of faculty discuss a long time ago. It made my blood pressure so much better. Senator Marini.
Thank you, Speaker. Yeah, I'm just going along with what many other people said. It's about basic respect. So like with my students in our courses, I always ask the students to come up with their norms on how they want to behave in class and online. And they always come up with what I heard today: agree to disagree, be respectful, don't call people's names. If you have an opinion, it's totally fine to state it, but be respectful, support your opinion, and don't put other people down for their opinions. My students have very different backgrounds, beliefs, and values, and they always thank me for creating a welcoming environment where everybody can speak and be heard and not get it, not be disrespectful of each other. So I think we're talking about some pretty basic things. I believe we need a code or something in writing. We just have to agree on the content and how we phrase things. But it is about respect. Personally, my own personal opinion, I feel like I do represent the university on campus and off campus. So I don't believe in being rude to anybody anywhere. So it's just about talking to each other and communicating. So we just have to agree on how to write it down.
Thank you. Senator Banerjee.
So, I'm still a little confused as to who's going to, enforce this code and, what sort of, procedure is going to be followed for the enforcement of the code. Who's the owner of this code?
Dr. Lynch, do you want to address the enforcement part of it?
Of course. So the intention of the two task forces and then ultimately the Academic Freedom Council, the suggestion was that the Faculty Senate house the code of conduct. That does allow the faculty to define what goes into the code. It also allows the faculty to be more nimble in responding to concerns or updating the code as necessary. The enforcement related to unprofessional behavior is already in place in SAP's rules and regulations, and is currently, multiple people are sanctioned every semester for various forms of unprofessional conduct and behavior. And that's through the department heads. They are the assigned supervisor of the faculty member. And so they are the one that ultimately would issue any personnel action, which could be a letter of expectations about something that occurred and expectations for how the faculty member would address that behavior moving forward. And it could involve some sanctions. What that is varies quite a bit depending on what the situation is. It could be additional training that's required if they violated a certain requirement, for example.
So what if the department head themselves are the violators?
So department heads are faculty as well. And so they're also held to the code of conduct, and they also can be sanctioned for unprofessional behavior.
No, so the question is who enforces it if the department head themselves?
The supervisor of the department, so it would be the dean in that case.
And what if it is across two different colleges?
So if someone's jointly appointed, for example?
So if there are two faculties between two different colleges that are having a difference of opinion, and one person thinks that they are getting denigrated, so then who enforces that?
So if someone filed a complaint, for example, is that what you?
Right, that if one person in college A felt like they were being denigrated by someone in that it was pervasive, egregious, impacted their research, all of those qualifiers.
Okay.
From
that-
College B.
From a college beat, right,
Right.
exactly.
So we always try an informal route first, which often involves hosting a conversation but amongst the parties involved, the people involved, to try to reach a resolution. If that's unsuccessful, the complainant, whoever believes that they've been a target or have been treated in a way that has impaired their ability to work, can file that complaint, and then it would be reviewed by whatever body reviews those complaints. So as an example, if it's a civil rights complaint, that goes to the civil rights office. If it's a complaint that doesn't fall within civil rights or other specific categories like fraud, waste, and abuse, then it would be their department head, the department head of the person that they're complaining against, that would review those allegations.
Okay, so I'm not clearly clear, because if it's two different department heads, two different faculties in two different departments, which department head?
So if there's a complainant in one college,
Right.
and they're making a complaint against a faculty member in the other college,
Right.
the supervisor of the faculty member that allegedly engaged in some unprofessional conduct does the review.
So what if the supervisor does not want to engage?
Well, then they can escalate. I mean, these are processes that already exist, right?
Right.
So, yeah.
So if the processes already exist,
We just
then
don't
why do
have
we
a
need this code of
definition.
conduct?
We don't have a definition of what unprofessional behavior is.
But it's still open to interpretation by the department head.
Well, this does provide some guidance, because otherwise they might say that anything that you say against someone's research one time would be unprofessional instead of pervasive, egregious, denigrating that's going to damage their research.
So
And
it's
so that
simply-
provides some context for not only the department head, but also for CAFRD and the UGC and those groups too.
Because, it's open to interpretation by whoever is the arbiter, right?
Well, it already is, but this helps show the elevation of it, that it has to be like this big, long, pervasive behavior instead
But
of
what
just
if they
one time.
choose to ignore it?
So that's, again, the person, just like now, the person can go and escalate it. So in the interest of time,
sure,
since discussion, I want to go to Senator Burns, and then I'm going to ask to wrap this up because it was late and we still have committee of the whole. So Senator Burns, go ahead.
Howdy from the law school. As I listen to the conversation, feel very safe and comfortable with the law faculty. But when I hear like several people are, brought up on this and found whatever, it seems a bit more serious than I was thinking. And in a long-term perspective, several people brought up, and I'm going to strenuously argue for this and include something, which is they brought up, we need examples on both sides. And so like in a law hypothet, what's these worst case scenario perspectives or risk management, what's okay, what's not okay, as broad examples, not binding, whatever the language needs to be created by the committee in charge of it. But one specific example I would love to see included, which would protect us, especially in the law field, is like, if you're at a demonstration or what have you, and what is, because I wear a lot of Texas A&M, just for me personally, I wear a lot of Texas A&M paraphernalia, obviously my keepa and so forth. And if that's not allowed, I want to know right up front, if that would bring me into the perspective, the scope of this, I would want to know that, right? And because even, showing up on one side or the other, whatever the issue is, can infuriate in the current times that we're in, whatever. I just want to be safe. So again, I feel safe at the law school, but when I hear this, it makes me a bit actually more nervous than I was before this whole conversation. That's all.
Well, thank you. Thank you. Okay, I'm going to pause this and go ahead and ask Speaker-elect Klein to take us into committee of the whole.
Thank you, Speaker Price. Does anyone have any discussion for committee of the whole? Anyone online, or are we discussed out? Senator Miranda has his hand raised.
Just very quickly to revisit that governor's order that came up a couple of weeks ago. The Foundation for Individual Rights, FIRE, is very interested in the order and in people whose research and experiences are being affected by the order. So I just encourage, if your research is being shut down because of where you do or conduct your research, you might want to contact FIRE representatives. They've expressed an interest.
Thank you. Senator Townsend has her hand raised next. We can't hear you, Grace. We still can't hear you.
How's that?
We can hear you now.
Yay. Excellent. My earbuds died in that last discussion, so searching for a new speaker. Real quickly, attended the ball game, A&M UT ball game a couple weeks ago. I've sat in the same seats for a lot of years, have never had an issue with over-serving in that particular section, but I can tell you it was going on during that game, and it was incredible, dangerous, incredible. And so that may happen in other sections, but if it's happening in my section, I think they got a real problem, and I would love for the athletic department to look into that. Thank you.
There were several people who said the same thing, that there was a excessive serving of alcohol to people who really didn't need any more alcohol. And so I will bring that up in multiple venues. Thank you.
Senator Ramsey/Klein.
Heather Klein from the College of Arts and Sciences. So I just wanted to point something out to my fellow senators about the honors minor that was just passed. Somebody mentioned a concern about the credit hours that don't overlap with courses that are part of their major that are already being taken, those other 5 hours of HONR coursework. That will go into the general electives in your degree plan if you don't have some sort of exclusion in place. Perhaps one reason to maybe consider putting in an exclusion, because you can always submit adjustments to basically undo the exclusion. So one reason to maybe consider putting in an exclusion for the HONR hours would be for students who want to do education abroad opportunities. So right now, our undergraduate students are limited to 2 minors. And we actually just had a discussion at the Student Rules and Regs Committee meeting about allowing a 3rd minor or making an exception so that the honors minor could be a 3rd minor only in that case. We were actually told it's a non-starter at this moment because of our technology not being able to handle a 3rd minor. So there was a group put together and asked to look into this. But just wanted to point out that a lot of our undergraduates are only able to do education abroad experiences if the coursework they're earning credit for while abroad applies directly to their degree. And so some courses, sure, you can find an equivalent, but at least for mathematics, a lot of my students need to have general elective credit to be able to get to 12 credit hours of financial aid full-time eligibility to be able to do the trip. So just a thought to maybe discuss whether you want to exclude the HONR hours if you have a low number of general elective hours in your degree plans.
Senator Bright.
Yes, this is I would love to get an update on the comments that Faculty Affairs received in regards to these changes that they're making or the proposed changes to the university rule that deals with the UGCs. Speaker Price, I know that you had mentioned that they came, some representative of faculty affairs was coming or came to the EEC to give a response. I would love for that response to be shared with the general faculty, so we can be all on board or understanding of what the response were, and how our concerns are being met or not.
Can you ask him to come up?
John, Michael, would you like to come to the mic?
Thank you. So we talked to the EC about this, and basically there were two concerns that were raised to us. One was the lack of a red line for that particular change. And the reason we didn't include a red line was that there was so much removed and so much moved around that a red line would have been hard to read. So we just put the new SAP out there. In the future, we can definitely add both the clean and the red line. It's not a big deal, but it was just for ease of reading. And then the other part was the timing of the request for comments. And so the timing closed over the Thanksgiving holiday break, and it seemed somewhat short because of that. And so we extended it an additional week to give people time to provide more comments. And I'm not aware that we received any in that additional week.
No, I submitted comments. I know several other people submitted comments in regards to the changes. Yeah. So what I'm more interested in knowing. So you're saying that you didn't receive any comments?
They've not
collated them yet. To whom did you
Okay, great.
submit the comments, Leonard?
What was that? I'm sorry, I missed that.
Leonard, who did you submit the comments to?
To the link that was provided on the document on Faculty Affairs website.
Okay, so
Yeah,
we get
so
those. Right, that closed on Friday, and so it probably is going to come to my inbox and our inbox in the next couple of days.
Right. Yeah. So yeah, I just would love to have an update on your response to some of those concerns that were raised.
Sure, and I would be happy to either come and talk to the EC again, or we can talk to personnel and welfare, whichever everyone thinks is the appropriate venue to have that discussion.
Or all of the above?
Or all of the above, yes.
Thank you. Are there any other things for discussion in committee of the whole? I do not see any hands raised, so I will turn it back over to Speaker Price.
Okay, do I have a motion to adjourn? A hand and a second. All right, we're adjourned. Thank you very much.